So Samantha Tremmel is going to present a little bit of a success story on a climate change design workshop that she facilitated, and Samantha is one of our stakeholder engagement specialists at Powernoodle.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So as Deb briefly touched on, I'm going to share with you a success story that focused on an engagement that leveraged Powernoodle throughout a design thinking approach to addressing climate change related issues. And this is also a really great example of how you can successfully blend asynchronous pre-work with a real-time session. So this is the first phase in a long-term project to understand the relationship between human behaviors and climate change. And the specific focus of this phase was to understand the behaviors that climate change conscious people exhibit. And so being the divergent stage of the design thinking approach, the objective wasn't to prioritize at this point, but to surface as many creative ideas and hear as many voices as possible, all while igniting really deep and rich discussion and debate. And so the stakeholders that were brought to the table came from many different backgrounds. There were everyone from high school students to experienced senior level executives, so really wide range of ages and expertise. So they were split up into 3 stakeholder groups, so 3 core groups that involved the general participants. There was then the group of provocateurs who kicked off the discussion periods and facilitated the dialogue. And their main task for the day was really to challenge everyone's thinking and be the so-called antagonists to get everyone's brains going and really challenge what was going on. And the third stakeholder group was the listening team. And the listening team was responsible for taking copious notes in order to capture behaviors throughout the day, thoughts, key points, etc. And they were tasked after the engagement to consolidate the data and decide on the next steps. And so the approach that was taken consisted of a combination of pre-work and a face-to-face workshop. So in the week leading up to the workshop, the stakeholders engaged in 2 activities on their own time. The first was a fun icebreaker activity, which introduced them to the platform and got everyone to create their accounts. And the second was they began noodling their first discussion question. And this was really key because it helped to make sure that they really got into the mindset of the day and really got their heads into the right space prior to the workshop, and really helped us to just hit the ground running the day of. So the workshop itself consisted of 2 keynote speakers and 3 discussion periods, which were ignited by the provocateurs. And we had 2 decision spaces set up for this event. So there was one for the participants and one for the listening team, so that they could take their own notes and capture their own insights. And how we set it up was that we had one topic for each agenda item. So one topic for each keynote speaker and for each discussion period. And it was used throughout the day in order to complement the live dialogue and discussion so that people could sort of dive a bit deeper without disrupting the keynotes, to host sub-conversations, allow people to note important takeaways, and really complement the live activity going on in the room. All right, so over the course of the engagement across 2 decision spaces, so the one for the participants and one for the listening team, 24 stakeholders generated over 700 insights and ideas and over 200 comments. So for being the first stage of the design thinking approach and just capturing ideas, it was a really big success, and we gathered a lot of different ideas and had a very high level of engagement. And the participant feedback was also very positive. So this is the results from an interactive feedback assessment that we completed at the end of the session. And you'll actually be able to replicate this on your own, as we've made a Powernoodle template out of the questions that we used to conduct this evaluation, and Diane's going to touch on that a bit later. But just a few of the key points from this. And again, this will be turned into a PDF after, so you can look at it in a bit more detail if you'd like. But 91% of people said that this was their most effective experience ever in having the opportunity to share their insights freely, regardless of gender, hierarchy, or physical ability. Another 80% of people said that this was their most effective experience ever in having the ability to contribute to pre-work ahead of time when it was convenient for them. So across the board, we got very, very positive results, and it was told that people really enjoyed being able to participate ahead of the session to get their ideas going. All right, so these are just some of the participant feedback that we received. So just to touch on a couple here. Someone noted that they're an introvert, and this approach made it a lot easier for them to really be part of the discussion. And another interesting note was that someone said it actually helped them concentrate better using Powernoodle throughout the day, as they need something to do with their hands in order to listen well. So that was a really interesting note that I hadn't heard before, but I think it's probably applicable to a lot of people. So that was some good feedback. So on the organizer side, one of the great notes is that someone said that they really enjoyed the decentralized nature of capturing the digital record without having to use Post-it notes, or without having to, be writing on them throughout the session and slowing things down. Someone else noted that Powernoodle is really able to get out of the way and let the ideas come to the forefront, and that it's something that's kind of hard to appreciate until you experience it. So overall, really great feedback. A key point for us was the fact that it didn't distract from the conversation. And prior to the engagement, there was actually some skepticism among the organizers that it was going to be distracting for the participants to be able to be using Powernoodle at the same time as a live discussion was going on. But from the participant and organizer feedback afterwards, the results were quite contrary to that, and that it actually helped ignite the conversation further. And so lastly, just a few final interesting observations. So working across such a diverse range of stakeholders, from Gen Zs to millennials to baby boomers, an interesting note was that you could see that at the beginning of the day, the Gen Zs and millennials were almost exclusively sharing their thoughts in Powernoodle, and they weren't interacting live in the live dialogue. But as the day progressed, and as they could see in the Powernoodle sessions that their ideas and insights were just as valuable as everyone else's, that's when they really started engaging in the live conversation as well. So it was a really neat observation to be able to see them building their own confidence through the decision space to be able to participate and engage with the entire group. Another key observation was that a number of people said, and a few actually came up afterwards and mentioned this, that they're introverts who usually found this kind of group work really frustrating, but that this approach was really valuable for them and really enabled them to be part of that discussion.